Hey, I'm Doc, this is Stomp, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit differently. I'm going to talk about Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, but I don't have a script. I'm just kind of going to ramble on for a little bit and see how this does. I wanted to try making shorter videos that are, thoughtful but sort of more off the cuff than scripted, just to see if that might interest people. And Infinite Warfare is a game I had a lot of different thoughts about, so I figured that would probably be the place to start. So, Infinite Warfare is a really good game. I think everybody should play it. I think it's a really interesting game. It's probably the boldest Call of Duty game that's ever been made. Normally, Treyarch's the one that does a lot of the sort of innovative stuff, like, Black Ops 2 had a choice and consequence system and side quests. Black Ops 3 lets you pick the gender of the character you play as. There's a lot of different innovations that have gone into Infinite Warfare that I feel make it kind of possibly the best game in the series, at least from a campaign standpoint. It's got space combat, which is really cool. One of the things I loved about Halo Reach is that it had this one really great dogfighting sequence. Well, Infinite Warfare has like 20 of those, and it's awesome. They're all fun. They're like super freeform. You can fly wherever you want within the sort of the combat arena. I actually never once encountered a sort of, leaving the area error message. Like, they're pretty large, and honestly you tend to fly around in the places where you would be shooting stuff, so it feels really nice. The missions have loadouts, so you get to like pick the stuff that you want to do. The level design has changed somewhat. The tools that you use are all really interesting. One of the problems that I had with Ghost was it introduced new tools occasionally, but it told you when you were going to use them. You get to pick and choose whatever you want throughout Infinite Warfare, and the tools are all really cool. So it's a game I really like, but I felt like it had sort of one major flaw, and that was in the narrative. A lot of good games have sort of a theme, right? They're about sort of a grander topic or ideal. Sometimes it's about relationships, sometimes it's about like the game's relationship with the player. Modern Warfare 2 is a game that protests the Afghanistan war. It's a game that actually says, how would you feel if somebody invaded your country unfairly, and what would you do about that? It's a game that actually ends with you in Afghanistan fighting American soldiers. Like, it's a pretty intense experience in a way, and it's trying to make a point. So then along comes Infinite Warfare, and it's actually a game about duty. Like, Call of Duty has never actually been about duty, I think. That's the name, and like the death quotes that you get, whenever you die and you see a quote pop up and it's like, only the dead have seen the end of war. Those were all like really important. But Infinite Warfare is actually about duty. Like, the bad guy basically talks about his sort of duty to his ideals, and then that, of course, is sort of the catalyst for you to sort of combat his ideals because you think they're wrong. When a captain sacrifices his ship and his crew, like, that's you going, oh, that seems like a bad thing to me. I don't like that. Like, that's what your character does. And then as time goes on, you kind of learn that, well, actually, maybe self-sacrifice is important. That could be a really good narrative. In fact, there is a lot throughout the narrative that is really good. Like, the character of Ethan is wonderful. The relationship that Salt has with Reyes is fantastic. There's so much about this game to like, and the story that it has. The pacing is wonderful. It's got some really cool, like, dramatic beats that occur. There were just all sorts of characters in this game. There's a real sense of character in the game that I haven't encountered in a AAA game in a really long time. The problem is that you never get to see what you're fighting for. Like, you have a duty, but it's like, what is your duty to? It seems like the only thing that they ever show you is who you're fighting. And every time you die, the death quotes that you get are these, like, really sort of cliche space Nazi quotes where, like, the bad guys are like, we will kill everybody, or you have to have a gun and fight people if you are a real person, or, just weird quotes that, like, it's like, this is what you're fighting, which, okay, that's good, but one of the sort of important components of duty is the idea that it's a duty to another person. Duty is fundamentally self-sacrifice. It's something that you do because you care about other people. And Infinite Warfare only has about like a minute where it shows you sort of other people, the people you're fighting for, and those are largely just NPCs that are on the street like sobbing after an explosion happened. Like you just kind of walk through there on your way through the level and you're not really paying attention to them. They just kind of make the terrorist attack feel kind of horrible. It's not like a real this is what you're fighting for thing. In the movie Saving Private Ryan, right, like they show you the mom and the family first, and then they say the other brothers are dead, so we're gonna get this brother back. We're gonna get Private Ryan back. And so throughout the entire movie, you have this sort of image of this, you know, mom and how sad she is, and that's why Tom Hanks and his bros are doing this thing. They're sacrificing themselves to save this one person for the people back home. It's very clear. The movie is very clear about that. And Infinite Warfare never has that. It never says this is why you're sacrificing yourself. So the end of the game sort of feels like it's really fatalistic. It's very nihilistic. It's just kind of like you're gonna die in the process of duty, but you know, it's a very different tone from like when Tom Hanks dies at the end of Saving Private Ryan and he's like, earn this, and you know that actually like mattered, right? Like that's Tom Hanks, like, you know, it's a very hopeful ending. It's tragic because Tom Hanks dies, but it's hopeful because you get to see that Private Ryan was saved, and then it reiterates it at the end because you see his family and you see him as an old man standing at this gravesite for Tom Hanks' character. It's a movie that sort of encompasses the concept of duty in a way that Call of Duty doesn't, because Infinite Warfare has sort of forgotten to show you why you're fighting. So at the end you're just kind of like, I'm going to die, and everybody I know, which would normally be the people you're fighting for, all those people are going to die alongside me. And so then at that point it's kind of like, well, what's the point? Why am I doing this? And that is the one problem I have with Infinite Warfare's narrative. It needs to prove to you. It needs to be like, this is why I'm fighting. If it had that, if it showed you who you were sacrificing yourself for, instead of just saying, well, I'm doing it for Earth, because it's just kind of assuming that you care about Earth, it would be a better game. I think that's where Call of Duty could make a little bit of improvement. But otherwise, I loved Infinite Warfare. I think everybody should play it. It's a fantastic game. Come play Zombies in Spaceland with me. If you liked this video, or this style of more conversational approach, you know, where I don't have a script or take time to think about this, please let me know in the comments or on Twitter or whatever. If you did like the video, please support me on Patreon. I could really use your help right now. Patreon is my primary source of income, and I would like to continue making videos. You can follow me on Twitter at ForgetAmnesia. You know, if you like this video, please like and subscribe and share it to all your friends. Thanks.